Hello, 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 Doofus. We have a very happy little sheep here, blinking at us adoringly. And I am over here. It's in your neck of the woods. um, so yeah, I wanted to stop by and give you some input on this sucker here. I always find that that roofs like. Oh wait. Oh, never mind. I was gonna say I always find that roofs where you only use half slabs are harder to pull off. But you actually have stairs here. All right. Well then, watching your video, the first thing I thought was that you might want to give it more of a peak like that. And the second thing I thought, don't worry, I'm gonna put all this back. I'm doing it on camera so you can see what I did and judge me if I don't put it back the same. That's the second thing I thought. I'm not sure. Now that I see that. Something like that. I don't know. But anyway, maybe if you brought this thing down so it's only... See how this goes down sloped and then it's sort of curved at the end, but not as much as you had. Yeah, could be. I'm not sure. I would definitely go with that, though. I would definitely go with that thing on the top there. Not sure about that. But anyway, I saw your little fishing zone here, and I figured, man, it's about time I had my own little fishing zone. So let me put this back for you, and we will head on over to Oakfield. All right, welcome back to Oakfield. I am currently celebrating the release of the new MC Patcher mod, which has finally got a pre-release out for 1.8, so I am able to use this texture pack again, which I really, really love. Ah, look at that. Look at that. You can almost feel the cracks in that thing. And I really like her clay. Especially looks good over here. Look at this logging shed here. Like, sort of the highlights on the tops and the darkens things at the bottom. I really like that. Alright, so anyway, let's move on. Excuse me, I have a bit of a sore throat. Hopefully it'll be okay. Forgive me. What am I doing here? Spruce. I am, like I said, I think I'm going to get myself a little fishing area here, and what better area to put my fishing platform or wharf than this little thing looking over Baptism Lake. So why don't we get this going while I talk about stuff? Man, that was a good episode. I liked that episode. You know what? Fair point. About 0 hour. You're right. Probably. Probably. That looks weird. We should do this. Yeah, let's do that. It's probably not, excuse me. Probably not as educational as I thought. I just meant in the sense that a strategy game is essentially a series of puzzles that you have to solve. And then when you get down to it, that's really all it is. And I don't know, it seemed to me that, you know, it's good for young minds to work out, I suppose, their minds, if you see what I mean. And 0 hour certainly did that for us, given the amount of time we played it. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't. Maybe educational was the wrong word. Let's put it that way. So yeah, fair point. You're right. You are right, as ever, my Guzu. So, if I can figure out how this works, we're gonna switch the wood up there. I think we're gonna go for birch everywhere, but in the meantime, I'm just going to do it on this little platform here. So that was a very thoughtful question of the day there. A question that I actually, I mean, it's obviously a question I'm very interested in. I will say that picking your favorite movie is kind of a hard job, because who really has one favorite movie of all time, or a favorite song, or I mean, it's not really how it works. Should I make this wider? Yes, I should make this wider. I should make this one wider. I don't think that's how it works. I think you have. I mean, I don't know, man. My favorite song of all time usually changes once every 6 months or so. It depends on the song and the season and where I'm listening to the song. But usually, I mean, it goes through a fair amount of change, and I think that's normal. And it's not just because my views evolve; it's just because I kind of get sick of hearing the same song over and over again. So it's I do change, and the same goes for movies. So I'm going to interpret that question as more of a question on what types of movies do I typically more enjoy, and yes, I will be providing examples, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about which movies have had an influence on me rather than just a level of pure enjoyment, if you will. And so to kick things off, I would like to talk a little bit. What's that hole? What is this? Oh, no. I'd like to talk a little bit about something that you may have heard me talk about before. There is a rule in, yeah, that's pretty good, making movies, which is called show don't tell. I'm sure you've heard of it. People, I mean, if you pay attention to, I don't know, me or anybody really talking about what makes a good movie, show don't tell inevitably comes up. People will rightly say that, movies do things differently than books, and you need to show people the information you're trying to convey, not sit back and boringly tell them about what you're doing, or about the plot, or whatever happens to be the case. Yeah, it's pretty good. This doesn't make sense to me. We'll just do this, huh? Make it stick out one more. Hang on. I'm gonna keep my train of thought here going. In a second. Yeah, good. That's not bad. That's not bad. All right. Cool. Okay. Sorry, server was restarting there. Why don't I? So show don't tell. Why don't I tell you what show don't tell is? People always ask me, and our dear cousin Owen was the latest person to ask me this, why I despise the Star Wars prequels so much. Well, I could give you a lot of answers to that question, but really, in the end, they all boil down to the fact that the Star Wars prequels tell you, they don't show you. And that, honestly, kind of pisses me off. It's boring, it's repetitive, it's not interesting, there's nothing for me there when you spend most of the movie just telling me what's going on instead of showing me. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, can I just take one example? And I realize that one example doesn't prove anything, but just as an example, do you know this? One of the first scenes in Attack of the Clones, it may be the first scene actually. No, that can't be true, but it's one of the first scenes where we see Anakin and Obi-Wan going up this elevator to go see Padme for the first time. They're talking about some past experience they had, like, oh, I haven't seen you this nervous since I rescued you from that nest of blah, 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 whatever boring stuff they're talking about. Well, that's kind of what most people mean when they say show, don't tell. George Lucas, why are you telling us this when you could be showing us this? Right? Telling us will never be as exciting or as interesting or tell us as much about the characters as showing it to us. And that is part of the reason why I despise the Star Wars prequels, because they're littered with decisions like that. But that's not what I want to talk about. Because what I want to talk about is the fact that that's not actually what people mean when they say show, don't tell. This is not what it should mean. Right? It seems obvious that show, don't tell should entail some kind of conflict between, on-screen narration, like a voiceover, and maybe a scene without dialogue, right? But that's actually not entirely true. It's entirely possible to have. Hang on. I'm gonna come back to this stuff, but this actually looks pretty nice. I actually think I'm pretty done here. I'm thinking these fences can be a different color wood. Let's do that. Show, don't tell. It is slightly misleading because, and I should start hurrying up here. Show, don't tell is actually a rule that originated with books. Yes, books. It is a rule that was used to be applied to literature, which then sort of got appropriated by film studies people to start describing movies. But that is not really what it's about. See, you can have a book where one of your characters, for example, say he's rather tall. Well, you can tell us that he's rather tall, can't you? Or you can show us that he's rather tall. You can say John was very tall. Well, you're telling us he's very tall, but John walked through the doorway and hit his head against the ceiling fan, or whatever, or against the door frame. Right? Now you're showing us that he's tall. We, the reader, read that and we're like, oh, he must have hit the door frame because he's so tall. I get it. Right? And if you, the audience, or you, the reader, or you, the player, are doing the work in your head, then you feel much more invested. You feel it's much more interesting. It's much more powerful. It says a lot more about the character. It's just better. Right? But it's important to note that you can have a scene without any dialogue at all, and it would still be, it could still be telling us information and not showing us information. It's entirely possible. It's also entirely possible to have a voiceover that shows us more than it tells us with the words. And so to illustrate this, I'm going to actually answer your question and give you an example of a movie that I am absolutely in love with. And that movie is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I haven't actually seen it as much as I've seen, say, Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or something like that. But The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Man, the first time I saw it, golly, I was just absolutely blown away. This was early on in my sort of film studies, shtick, and I hadn't really, I didn't know you could do that in a movie. I didn't know you could have a 10-minute long scene where nobody says a word, everyone just stares at each other. Literally, that's all they do, and it's the most badass action scene I've ever seen. Because it's obviously a build-up to an action scene. But it's so slow, and at the same time it's so subtle, that you're just like, oh man, this is amazing. It's also one of the movies, back when Clint Eastwood could, well, back before he embarrassed himself, slightly. Although I do, well, there's some of his recent movies, but that's not the point. I'm going to link a scene from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly in the description. It's not the one you would think. It's not the final duel, which is very famous. It's not, has no action. It doesn't even have much Clint Eastwood. All it has is Eli Wallach just running around in a graveyard with music. And I link it to you because this scene is the scene which made me fall in love with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Because in most other movies, say the Star Wars prequels, that scene would have been about 10 seconds long, because all that happens in the scene is that Eli Wallach searches for a grave, a certain grave. Right? That's all he's doing. He's there's a treasure in the grave, so he's looking for the grave. Fine, whatever. But the way it's shot, the way the music swells as he's running in circles literally around the graveyard, tells you far more in the space of a few minutes than you could with the half hour of dialogue. And you should watch it even if you haven't seen the movie, because it stands on its own, really, and it doesn't spoil anything. I mean, I would advise watching the whole movie. It's a great movie for other reasons, but that one scene is really, it blew me away when I first saw it, and it's everything that I enjoy about movies wrapped in one scene. Okay, I'll give you another example that you know that I like, and that is the movie Gravity. I like Gravity because it tells its story without words. Sure, there's some dialogue, and sure, they do talk to each other, and yes, there's some exposition about some satellite or whatever, but who cares? That's not why you go see Gravity, is it? I'm not going to bore you with why I enjoy Gravity. You've read my paper, and we've talked about it, but Gravity is the kind of movie that, to me, justifies the existence of movies. I mean, the stuff that Gravity does, it does so well. And it's, to me, the reason that, there we go, that people make movies. And watch movies. It's the reason people watch movies. Is for like Gravity, even if they don't, they won't necessarily admit it, or, hey, not everyone likes Gravity. I'll be the first to admit that, right? But at the end of the day, show don't tell, man, that is an important rule, and you are always drawn to movies that do it well, whether you know it or not. I promise you. Now, it may be that you don't like the things that the movie is showing, or you do. I mean, I don't think that the pre-Star Wars prequels do a very good job at showing and not telling, but, some people might disagree with that. So, this is not proof. I'm not offering proof that everyone should hate the Star Wars prequels. Absolutely not. What I'm explaining is why I hate the Star Wars prequels. And why I like Gravity. And if you can understand why I hate Attack of the Clones and why I love Gravity, then boom, you got it. That's as simple as that. Other movies. Well, I'm going to have to mention Tarantino, because I've brought up spaghetti westerns. Yes, by the way, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is known as a spaghetti western. Something that dear Mr. Tarantino is very taken with. As you can see by the fact that he uses or references them in most of his movies. So, I almost hesitate to bring up something like Pulp Fiction, because it's practically, there are scenes of it that are very, very spaghetti western. But be that as it may, that's pretty much what I enjoy. Did I just get 2 salmon in a row? Wow. That's pretty much what I enjoy in movies. This is a great fishing spot. Man, I like this a lot. Hang on, I'm going to look at it from a distance here. Where should I go? Oh, over there. I need to fix this house, by the way. I used to like there being a house over here. Yeah, look at that. That is awesome. That is really good. Huh. Cool. I'm not sure about the end of it, though. It just sort of ends. Shouldn't there be some kind of square platform there? God, my throat is kind of sore. Wait, do you mind if I do a little time check here? Okay. 20 odd minutes. So that's, I could say a lot more on the subjects of movies that I like and movies that I dislike. And I have a lot more examples too. But at the end of the day, hang on. I have one more thing to say, but I wonder if I made it wider down there. Would that help? No, that'd look weird. Would it? No. Let's try it. Oh. Nice aiming. Shoot, I'm running out of inventory space. Let's see, what if I put this here? did something like this. Yeah, like that. Is that good? No. No, it's not. But you know what would be good is if I extended it even more this way and this way. Ah, yes. Okay. All right. Let's try that. Now, like I was saying, at the end of the day, I like my movies to be subtle. I like subtle movies. That's just the kind of moviegoer that I am. I don't really like it when a movie takes me by the hand and, you know, I hate to keep saying this, but tells me what to think instead of showing me something and allowing me to form my own conclusions. But what can you do? Not a lot of movies seem to grasp this. Oh yeah, birch. Oops. Should we sleep? Let's sleep. All right. Well, this might end up being a bit long after all. Sorry. Now, I would like to. There's a lot more that I could say, and I'm not going to. I'm going to stop. All right. Maybe we can continue this in another video. I would like to ask you a question. It's a very similar question, but I'm not going to ask you for your favorite movie, if you don't mind. Although, feel free to chime in on that as well. But I would like to ask you about your favorite game or games. And I would also like you to think about the fact that if books can show and not tell, then games definitely can as well. I have been playing a little bit of Crusader Kings 2. I haven't managed to quite get into it yet. But I will say right off the bat that Crusader Kings 2 is a game that shows you and doesn't tell you. No matter how many tutorials they have or helpful tooltips that pop up, Crusader Kings 2 is something that each person experiences differently. How's that? That's pretty good, isn't it? Yeah, I like that. Maybe make it 3 wide, since this is 3 wide. I don't know. But the experience of playing Crusader Kings 2 is very much open to interpretation depending on who's playing it, and that is the essence of show don't tell. The same could absolutely be said of something like Papers, Please, right? I mean, the story in Papers, Please is never really explicitly narrated, is it? I mean, they don't really tell you who exactly you are and what happens on the first day and the second day. No, instead, you discover it on your own. You know, they don't tell you that, oh, your family is dying of sickness and whatever. It happens organically within the gameplay. You know, so that's how a game can show and not tell. And with that being said, why don't you come up with a few examples of video games that you really enjoy? And if I could make a slight request, let's make this a bit longer. Could you maybe come up with at least one example that includes a strong story, a video game story that you liked, and why you liked it? All right. I'm liking it less and less the bigger I make it. Yeah, maybe I'll chop off the third block off of this. Sorry for rambling, but I'm just doing something else while you're watching this, so it's probably not a big deal. I'm really not. I'm feeling very dopey here today. Well, it's not bad. I can't decide if I like it with 2 blocks or 3 blocks better, or even if I want that whole T original. It's nice to be able to. I think it's nice to be able to sit here and fish. Yeah, it's very nice. All right. So yeah. Despite this episode being quite long, I actually didn't end up saying that much. I hope that's okay. I will try to be better next episode, and yeah, I think that's about it. All right. Enjoy, and I will see you on the next episode of DufisTalk.